वासुदेव श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव हे राम नारायण वासुदेव हे श्याम नारायण वासुदेव हे राम नारायण वासुदेव हे श्याम नारायण वासुदेव हे राम नारायण वासुदेव हे श्याम नारायण वासुदेव श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव।
Welcome to Satsang. Let's begin with a few minutes of quiet meditation together. So take a moment, make sure your phones are off, and find a position that you can sit in comfortably without moving or fidgeting or adjusting for maybe 5, 7, 8 minutes. Take a moment and find that position. And then allow a stillness to come in the body. And then draw that stillness from the physical body inward. Draw the awareness to your breath. Don't try to change it. Don't manipulate it in any way. Simply allow the awareness to merge with the breath. As you exhale, on each exhalation, let go. Let go of another aspect of your mind, your identity, that's holding you back and keeping you stuck. Let go of all the masks that you wear. Let go of the roles that you play. Let go of all the ways you identify the self. Let go of your history. All that which has happened and how it's impacted you. Just breathe it out. And with each exhalation, as you exhale and let go, allow yourself to sink deeper and deeper into the core truth of the self. Sink deeply into that place where there are no masks, no roles, no history. Just allow yourself to sink deeply. Sensations may come, sounds or smells or some other sensation. Don't worry about them. Don't try to fight them off or push them away, but also don't allow yourself to get distracted and pulled by them. Just keep drawing the awareness back to the breath. As you sink deeper and deeper and freer with each exhalation. Letting go of that which is not self and seeking, dropping, connecting with the true self. dropping deeply into it. And at the end of each exhalation, before you take the next inhalation, allow yourself just to rest for a moment in that spaciousness at the core of the being. As you sink deeply into it, rest for a moment in that place of freedom. Slowly and gently, bring the palms of your hands together at chest level and rub them gently against each other. Press the palms of your hands into your closed eyes. Slowly open the eyes and drop the hands. Welcome again to Satsang. We'll begin as always with a question that came in advance and then open it up to any question that anyone here may have. Is reality dependent upon someone being there to perceive it? Is reality dependent upon someone being there to receive it? To perceive it. So those of you who have been coming to satsang for a while know that I try to the extent possible to avoid topics that are too esoterically philosophical, that are just kind of too much in our heads of intellectual philosophy, and rather to really keep trying to bring it into what does that mean for you? What is this in our truth? Because satsang, of course, is that presence of truth. But it's not a presence of a truth as in, what does the philosophy say in a book? But rather that truth as in, how can I live it? How can I know it? So we'll take this, but we'll take it as much as possible in a way that is connected to our experience. So here's the aspect of our reality and our perception. The truth, when we speak about the capital T truth, is existence. It's consciousness. It's divinity. It's soul. It's spirit. Now, is that dependent upon us perceiving it? No. And one of the ways to know this, I'm a scientist by heart, so for me, it's always important that an answer be grounded not only in a sense of rightness and spiritual experience, but also in terms of something that makes sense. And if you think about existence or soul, spirit, divinity, requiring us to perceive it for it to exist, then it would have lots of breaks in its existence. And our scriptures date back thousands of years and are telling us the same thing. And there, of course, are people who teach that the scriptures literally had no beginning, have been eternal always, which means that the truth cannot depend upon how I'm perceiving it. Today, someone is there to perceive it, tomorrow, someone isn't. Well, then whatever it is, it's not eternal. It's dependent on my perception. So the highest truth, the highest reality, does not require us to be there. It's not like that Zen koan about if the tree falls in the forest and there's no one there, does it make a sound? So we're not talking about one tree, one forest, one mind puzzle. We're talking about existence, reality, truth. Does not require us. However, for us to interact with existence, for us to interact with truth, for us to interact with soul, spirit, of course, requires us. For example, what is your name? Sabrina. So I can see Sabrina. If you say to me, does Sabrina exist? Absolutely. I can tell you exactly what she looks like. I can tell you a lot of things about her from a physical level because I can see her with my eyes. I know she exists because I see her. But if I close my eyes, if I ask her to speak and she speaks, then I still know she exists because I can hear her. But if my eyes are closed and she's not making any noise, and she doesn't have any distinct smell, or I don't have a nose that's good enough at picking up distinct smells at a distance, and she's too far for me to touch her or taste her, I have no way of interacting with her existence. Now, she didn't cease to exist because I ceased being able to interact with her existence. She didn't lose, but I lost. Our ability to interact with the world is dependent upon our perception. Now, our ability to interact with the physical world, the material world, is dependent upon our five senses. If I cannot use any of my five senses to understand someone, something in the material world, I have no way of interacting with it. I have no way of knowing that it exists. But those aren't my only means of perception. They're my only means of understanding the physical world. Like the tools of science are our only ways of measuring it. Got a beaker, got a ruler or a tape measure, got a scale, a microscope, a telescope. These are our tools of understanding the material world. It has a weight, it has a volume, it has a size. I can see it either with the naked eye or with a telescope or a microscope. But what about that which isn't of the material world? How do I know that? Well, we also have tools to know that. We also have the ability to perceive that. It's just not with our five senses. But our intuition, our heart, our inner knowing, doesn't matter what words we use for them, but we all know that we've had experiences, whether we accept and admit them or whether our intellectual scientific mind says, oh, that didn't happen, ignore it, pretend it didn't happen. Either way, I would imagine that probably everyone here at some point has had at least one experience of knowing something that you don't really have any way of knowing. You just know it. You feel it. You intuit it. You sense it. And that's essential because it is that other sense or other senses through which we are able to interact with the non-physical world. Take something as simple as love. Can't use my five senses. And yet, how tragic would it be if we couldn't interact with love? But we have to rely on some means of perception to feel it, right? I mean, what does love feel like? How do you know someone loves you? It's a great question. And of course, there's not one right answer either. But something that we would all agree on is just you feel it. And it interestingly has nothing to do with what people say. Because you could say, I love you, and I would imagine that most of us, or many of us, have been in a situation where we say, I don't know, you say that, but I'm not feeling it, right? Then there are people in our lives who maybe don't say it, maybe who are shy or who communicate in other ways, but you know it. You just know that person loves me. And you feel it. And it's beautiful, and it's essential. And love is only one of the myriad essential aspects of life that we perceive, but not through our five senses. And so it's up to us. It's not that reality or truth needs us to perceive it in order for it to exist, but we need to perceive it in order for us to actually be able to experience what we came on earth to experience, which is the truth of who we are. And that's an inner way of being evident, of knowing. So I know you because you are evident to me through my senses. But how do I know myself? What sense tells me I exist? What tells me I exist? How do I know I exist? That's what we call self-evident. Who's the self to which I am self-evident? Who's the self that knows I exist? And that's what our internal spiritual perception is. That's what this path of meditation and inquiry is about. Who am I? Not what do I feel like? Not what do I sound like? Not, oh, where's a mirror? What do I look like? Because that keeps changing. But how do I know I exist? In what way that isn't changing? And when we experience that, then we really touch self-evident. But my self exists whether I'm aware of it or not, whether I spend this life in the eat, drink, and be merry camp, whether I spend it in the he who dies with the most toys wins camp, regardless of which camp I choose to align with, my true self exists. But I need to interact with it in order to actually experience what I'm here for, to actually step up to that plate of really who I am and really why I took birth. There is a question from this afternoon. Ah, yes. Is the woman who had the question this afternoon here? Yes.
First of all, thank you very much for explaining everything so beautifully. My question is related to letting go, which is not serving you anymore. So my question is that sometimes, we do take some actions, because of our karmic things or whatnot, maybe out of fear, out of anxiety. So when we sit and meditate, how do I know that what exactly I need to change in order to, grow spiritually? And the reason I'm asking that it's important for me to know what I need to change is that later on, if luckily I'm able to make any transformations within me, I would know that I am growing spiritually.
Okay.
So how do I know that?
If I say to you right now, who are you? Who are you?
I just know that my identity.
Just answer. Just answer.
I don't know, actually.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. What is the first thing that comes into your head when I ask you that? Don't censor, just ask. Answer.
Human being.
Human being, okay. Now, if I say to you, in this moment, are you able to touch and experience, not in your brain because I'm saying it, but in the very experience of you, are you able to experience right here, right now, the absolute wholeness and perfection and divinity and love of who you are? Do you feel that right here, right now?
Yes.
But, what's the but?
So I recently had a very, amazing experience back in US. This is the reason I came to Rishikesh. My parents are in India. I had a, very different experience, and so I know that my life is seeking something, but I don't know what exactly it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I could say that I could feel that love and passion and, the things which a human being needs, but I'm still wanting more, maybe I'm being greedy right now, not doing the actions or the thing which I need to do right now, but yeah, seeking more.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I say to you, it's interesting, I said, can you feel the fullness and wholeness of yourself? And when you answered back, you said, I can feel all the things that human beings need. Now, interestingly, those are opposites. And I'm getting somewhere with you. This is not to push you just to push you. In this moment, when I say to you, can you experience the absolute fullness and perfection of yourself right here? And you say yes, but, and that's great. Nothing wrong with it. This isn't an exam. What is the but? What is it in you that feels less than full? What is it that you don't have that you aren't in you? Don't give me a story. Just what is it right here, right now that you don't have or that you aren't that makes you not able to feel that fullness right now? If I say you are full, you are perfect, there's a voice in your head that says, yeah, but. Give me that. What comes after the but?
Some imperfections.
What?
Some
Some voice in your head says, yes, but I am. What is that blank?
that I often do some things which I am aware that I shouldn't be doing as a
Okay.
human.
I do wrong things.
I do wrong
Done.
things.
I do wrong things out of ignorance, presumably. The ignorance, here's the beautiful piece. That ignorance, and this is why I pushed you into it, because I don't want to sit here and tell you what you need to let go. You need to decide what you need to let go. So what I hear from you is, when I sit to connect with the perfection of who I am, the first thing that comes up is I do wrong things. So there's guilt, there's shame, right? There's all of that. But if I go deeper, because the guilt and the shame are just reactions to what I've done, that level of ignorance. I'm not even going to go there right now. I'm going to take it even deeper. What is it that pushes me to do things that I later feel guilty about or that I feel shame about? Well, without putting you on the spot again, we'll go general. For most of us, it's things like anger, jealousy, competition, fear, confusion. These are the types of things that when they're in our head, we make choices and engage in behaviors that we later feel guilty about. All of those stem out of ignorance. They stem out of a voice in your mind that says, I am this body. I am what I've done. I am what has happened to me. I am what I look like. I am my skills. I am my degrees. I am my tenacity or my laziness, either way, that tells me I'm all of those things. And if I think I'm those things, then I'm going to bounce around like a ping pong ball between feeling good about myself, feeling bad about myself, but in either case, it's going to be based on what I've done. I've done something right, I feel good. I've done something bad, I feel guilty. What you need to let go of is that sense within you that says you are any of those. So when you exhale, I want you to let go literally of every voice in your head that says, I am blank, whatever it says. I'm not smart enough. I'm lazy. I have anger problems. I'm jealous. I'm greedy. I'm lustful, I'm dishonest, I'm addicted, I'm whatever you fill in the blank of I am with. Let that go. That's an identity. It's a false identity. Now, it doesn't mean that you've made a string of right decisions. I'm not condoning the decisions. It doesn't mean that you're not going to receive karmic fruits of decisions you've made. Spiritual awakening is not an eraser that goes back and removes everything I've done in the past. Sadly, it would be nice if it did, but it doesn't. It doesn't go through and erase all of your past. What it does is it changes who you are in the present, which means it's changing your future. But inevitably, there are going to be some karmic fruits that are going to come from the past. So I'm not saying what you've done, forget it, don't learn anything from it. I'm not saying that. But as you meditate, you need to let go of this identification. Because who you are is not what you've done. Who you are is not what anybody's done to you. Who you are is not what any of these emotions in your head are. Every emotion is some mix of chemicals and electricity in your brain. That's all it is. And by changing the chemistry and the electricity of your brain, I can change your emotions. That's what drugs are, the illegal kind and the legal kind. It's what we do. You're feeling depressed? Okay, here's a pill, and now you will no longer feel depressed. Feeling anxious? Here's a pill. Now you will no longer feel anxious, right? What is it doing? It's not undoing your childhood. It's not changing your relationships. It's not making the people around you suddenly sing and dance according to your tune. It is simply changing the chemistry and electricity of your brain. But in doing so, now you're not depressed. Now you're not anxious. All sorts of changes in what you think, how you feel, simply due to changing the chemistry and electricity, which is wonderful because it really helps us take ourselves a lot more lightly. A lot of us have the sense of, oh, but I'm feeling this. Oh, but I had this thought. Oh, but I'm troubled. But when you realize that every single one of those things boils down to a chemical and electrical pattern of activity in your brain, it loosens the grip on you a little bit. Makes you not take it quite so seriously, makes you realize, oh, there's another new moment. Okay, in this moment, the chemistry and electricity of my brain is going in a pattern we're going to call anger. Or we're going to call sadness, or we're going to call lust, or whatever. But it's just chemistry and electricity. I can change that. Everything we do changes it, not just the drugs we take. Changing a deliberate thought changes the brain. Bringing your awareness to your breath changes the brain. Getting outside and breathing fresh air changes the brain. Getting or giving a hug changes the brain. Taking a nap changes the brain. Tiny little things. And this doesn't mean to undermine what you're feeling by any means. It just means to realize it isn't you. If in something as simple as a glass of water, or a walk in the park, or a shower, or a pill, it changes what you're thinking, it changes your emotional state, well then clearly you're not your thoughts, because who you are isn't being changed by a pill. Who you are isn't being changed by a glass of water or a bath. Which means you are not those thoughts. So that's what you need to let go of. As you meditate, when you let go with each breath, okay, I'm not my guilt. I'm not my shame. I'm not that mistake I made. Just let them go. And give yourself that experience of really sitting in a place within you that's free of all of that. And again, it doesn't mean that in the tangible world you're not going to have to make amends or eat the karmic fruit of what you've done, but it means that your identity is free of that it isn't you, and that you're now free to make new choices for the future. That you literally are free to co-create your own existence from this moment on, right here, right now. You get to co-create that. But you have to stop identifying with past patterns in your brain. Oh, those chemicals that were floating around 2 hours ago, I am them. No, you're not. You've got that power. So let go of all that identification. Let go of the history. It's a line in the water. And if you forget that, go sit out on the banks of Ganga and draw lines in the water and see how long they last. For every line you draw in Ganga, remember, this that happened, it's a line in the water. And then move on, freely. Yeah. Yes.
How can I relate to the experience of nirvana or non-duality?
Mm-hmm.
It's really central to most yogic and Eastern thought, one of Patanjali's 8 limbs.
Of course.
And I hear people talking about it, how amazingly transforming it is, and they look transformed, and I feel left out, like I'm not woke, and like frustrated, like let down by the universe. And like it's like this unobtainable thing almost, and like even my seeking of it makes me less likely to get it.
Yes, of course, of course,
So
yes.
just...
Okay. So this experience of non-duality, this experience of just oneness, it comes in a lot of different ways. Here's what I would say, because of course there isn't a recipe to bring it on. But as you meditate, make very sure. You'll notice when we lead meditation in here, even how short it is, but I always try to emphasize, don't move your body. And the reason is actually very simple. Our brain, neurologically, is primed for change, primed for newness. So for example, if you keep looking at one picture, and the picture doesn't move, and you don't move your eyes, eventually what happens is it blurs. So you may start to look at a picture of something, and it may be very specific when you first look at it, but within a few seconds, if you don't move your eyes, that picture blurs. Because our brain stops. Our brain is like, yeah, I got that. We did that. But if you look away and then look back, it's sharp again. The brain is re-engaged. Or if the picture changes, if somebody's showing you flashcards and they're changing, the brain will keep re-engaging. It's created for newness. And the reason that that's important when we meditate is every time we change our body, even something as simple as where my hands are or my balance of weight, my brain is readjusting. And there's a whole section of my brain dedicated to what's called proprioception, which is my place in the universe on a literal physical level. And so it's that ability that enables me to stand up and walk outside this room without tripping over the table. I'm aware where I am in relation to the table, where I am in relation to this couch, how far I can put my legs down to stand up. That's a whole part of the brain. As I move, that part of my brain stays very active. In the brain studies that they've done of advanced meditators, what they find is that the areas of proprioception in the brain become very, 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 very quiet. Meaning, I no longer am distinguishing my place in the universe. There's no longer me and universe. There's just one. And that's the neurological sort of substrate, you could say, for this experience of oneness, is we actually now know where in the brain it happens, when the whole part of my brain that is used to figuring out how I'm going to navigate my world becomes really still and quiet. I'm just merged into that world. There is no longer me and table or me and floor or me and couch. So be really careful when you meditate, to the extent possible, not to move. And if you have to move once. So like move everything at once. You're going to change your legs, you're going to scratch your nose. I mean, just kind of give yourself 20 seconds of movement if it's a long meditation, and then sit quietly again. What you'll find when you do that, one of the first things that happens is you lose the sense of where your leg ends and the cushion begins. And it may seem really small and insignificant, but if suddenly there's no place you end and the cushion begins, it's the very beginning of no place I end and the universe begins. Turn on a gentle fan in the room, not in this weather, but otherwise, turn on a gentle fan in the room, and as the fan blows, see whether you can feel the fan actually blowing through you. But rather than just on one side of your face or one part, can you actually feel that air? And you will be able to. These are not like super advanced meditation techniques. These are things that many, many people experience. And they're small, and they're physical, but they're the beginning of this experience of, oh, wait, maybe there isn't necessarily such a fine line between me and the world if I can't even figure out where I end and the cushion begins. And then there's a technique that I teach frequently when we meditate in here, which is as you're breathing. When you begin breathing, we're usually acutely aware of the difference between the inhalation and the exhalation. So I'm inhaling, I'm bringing from the outer world inside. I'm exhaling, I'm sending from the inner world back to the outer world. But as you do that, and if you do that slowly and gently without moving the body at all, you can touch a place where there's no longer an inner and an outer, and there's just a movement of breath. And it's no longer from the outside to the inner and from the inner to the outer, but it's just a movement of breath. And again, they're small, they're physical, they're techniques, but they open the doorway into an experience of oneness with the universe. Then there's all sorts of other beautiful practices in terms of actually seeing the divine in all, which is, here in India, when we meet people, we bow, we say namaste. Namaste literally means the divine within me bows to the divine within you. Well, try to mean that. As you move through your world, instead of hey, hi, try to do namaste to people. Even if you don't necessarily say it, you can say it in your mind. You don't have to necessarily say it out loud, although it's nice. Everybody these days knows namaste. But at least do it in your mind. Because see, in order to connect with the soul, spirit, love, divinity in you, I have to come at it from the soul, spirit, love, divinity within me. My body can connect to your body. My intellect can connect to your intellect. But if I want to connect to your soul, I have to come at it from my soul. And if I can move through the world, instead of saying, oh, beautiful, handsome, old, young, fat, thin, tall, short, pale, dark, attractive, non-attractive, rich, poor, if I can stop moving through the world like that, and I can start moving through the world trying to just see the divine in all, you start to catch a glimpse. And it's not easy, but it's a gorgeous practice. And you start to catch glimpses. A glimpse in the eyes of this one over here, a glimpse in the way that the sun is reflecting off a leaf over there, a glimpse in the river over here, a glimpse in a child over there. And you start to catch glimpses of this sort of peekaboo that the universe is playing with you behind all the different forms. And you start to know how to look. And as you do that, you'll develop an experience. But you have to also be able to come at it from that place of soul within you. Because the ultimate non-duality is not just out there, but it's me with that. It's me as that. And so you have to be open within the self, free within the self, to merge into that. But it'll happen, don't worry. Yeah.
We talked about meditation earlier, and it kind of keeps coming back in a lot of the conversation. And I wanted to ask how we can choose the right meditation for us. I think that's really important. And a lot of the times, I like to meditate, but the meditation that I've been practicing, I feel like it takes a long time to get me to a calm place. And I feel like I still haven't found the right technique for me.
So there isn't any one right technique or one best technique. And in many cases, it really is just trying different ones and seeing what works for you. As you say, the one that you're currently doing takes a really long time to get you connected. So maybe there's another practice that you may be able to find that connects you quicker. There's meditations. I mean, different people have different characteristics. And so there's meditations that are very devotionally based, rooted in, for example, a mantra about a specific manifestation of the divine. The majority of the mantras that are given are all some variation of, oh God, by this name or form, I bow to you. And so whether it's to one of the names or forms of Vishnu, whether it's one of the names or forms of Shiva, whether it's one of the names or forms of the mother goddess, the overwhelming majority of mantras that we chant in our meditation are some variety of, oh God, in this name or form or with these characteristics, I bow to you. I surrender to you. And so if the path of devotion is one that feels right to you, that path of love for God, then maybe a mantra would be something that would get you there, in the same way that if there's someone you really love, looking at their picture makes you suddenly feel love, right? I mean, if I say to you, okay, on the count of 3, generate as much love within you as you can, what most of us will do is immediately call up in our mind's eye a picture of someone we really, really love. That's the fastest and easiest way to generate love within the self, is to think about someone you love. Pretend you're with them. Pretend you're looking at them. Suddenly you're full of love. So in the same way, if the devotional path is one that feels right to you, the fastest and easiest way to connect with God is going to be through loving that aspect of God. But for a lot of people, that's not necessarily where they are on a spiritual, religious place. And for a lot of people, it's much more about just awareness, insight, presence, at which point it's just this state of non-attached witnessing. There are techniques of actually naming, itching, longing. And you sort of just call it by name and then let it go. Then there are practices of not naming or anything, just bringing the awareness back to your breath. Whatever it is that comes up, don't pay attention to it and just stay focused on the breath. There's practices of focusing on a candle flame or an image of God or so many different things. See what works for you. My favorite story about this is the story of these 3 men who were stranded on an island in the middle of the ocean. And naturally they're panicked because they're stranded. And they pray and pray that the universe should send them some means to get off this island. And they wake up one morning and there's a canoe right on the shore. So they're ecstatic and they jump in the canoe and they row the canoe back to the mainland. And a couple of weeks later, they're walking through the market and somebody sees them and the 3 guys are walking in a line and they've got this canoe on their heads. They're holding the canoe on the head. And somebody says, "Why do you have a canoe on your head?" And they say, "Oh, this canoe, it saved our lives. We were stranded on this island and the canoe, it got us back to safety." And the guy says, "Well, that's great, but why are you carrying a canoe on your head?" And they say, "Oh, this canoe, we were stranded and it got us back to safety." And I love that story because it's so obvious that the canoe is just a mechanism to get from where you were stranded across the ocean back to the mainland. And it didn't matter that it was a canoe. All that mattered was it could float and they knew how to ride it. Right? It could have been a yacht. It could have been jet skis. It could have been a raft. It could have been anything. All that matters is that they know how to use it and that it works. And that's how meditation is. A lot of us get really stuck with the particular technique. And then it ends up sometimes even handicapping us, like trying to hold a canoe on your head in the middle of the village. Like, let it down because now you're stuck. Now you can't do anything because you've got a canoe on your head. Once you've used it and it carries you across, and you find yourself in that state of meditation, that's where you're supposed to be. Stay there. And yeah, if you lose it, grab back to the technique. But once you're there, don't worry if the technique has dissipated. It will dissipate. So whatever it is that works, if what you've got now doesn't work, start something new. Try a different path. For some people, they find seated meditation really difficult. Do walking meditation. There's a whole bunch of different ways. But what's important is just do it. And make sure that it does work for you, that it is taking you somewhere, even if you're not getting all the way across the ocean on the first go. At least are you no longer drowning? Are you no longer stranded? Yes. Okay. We'll take this as the last question. Yes.
In these moments of maximum connection,
see this immensity in front of you. And sometimes fear comes and say, okay, what happened if actually I leave this body?
I'm sorry, what happened? What was the last?
I leave this body.
I leave this body, yes.
So I want to ask, like, how to somehow manage this. I know with the breathing it could be a good meaning. And also connected with this is a different question that is also connected. What's our meaning of each one here? Like, what's our mission here? How we know when this mission is complete?
Great. So first of all, no matter how expansive and amazing it feels, you won't die in meditation. You won't actually leave your body. I know it feels like that sometimes. And there's a moment that a lot of us get to where there's that fear. You're meditating, you're there, and then there's something that says, come back, because if you keep going, you're not going to come back. But you will. That's the ego. It's the ego that is just so terrified to lose its grip on what it knows. But don't worry. You're not going to die. You're not actually going to stop breathing. You're not actually going to leave your body until the time is right. But meditation is not hazardous for your health, even at the highest levels. So have that courage and don't worry about it. In terms of knowing when our work is done, well, it's interesting because what we're all here for, aside, of course, from individual duties and dharmas, and the collective dharma is to wake up, to realize the truth of who we are, to realize the divinity within ourselves. But when you do that, being here in the body becomes even more joyful. So a lot of us think, oh, well, when we're done, we will then just leave the body. But interestingly, if you look at the most enlightened masters, if you look at the most enlightened beings of so many different religious traditions, after attaining their enlightenment, they didn't leave the body and stay in the forest. They went back and served. Right? The Buddha got up from under the Bodhi tree and went back into the villages. It wasn't, oh, now I'm enlightened. Okay, great, I'm done. It was, this now has awakened in me the awareness of what I'm supposed to be doing. And this is true with every enlightened master I can think of, is after the enlightenment, it became all about serving others. And all about continuing to bask in the joy and the ecstasy of experiencing God even in the body. The body is only a jail, a trap, when we're stuck in the mind. Because it's not the body itself that holds us back, it's the mind that holds us back. And so when we attain freedom in the mind, the body becomes just an exquisite tool. to interact with this beautiful creation, the sights, the smells, the tastes, the touches, I mean, everything. It's an extraordinary creation we've been given. And so the way that you know your purpose is done is when the body naturally drops off. Not because I've willed it to do so, not because I got bored, but when, for whatever reason, naturally, but where I'm not in any rush for that to happen, because I'm loving every moment. Every moment is an opportunity to experience God and serve God. Nor am I terrified of it, because I know it's an inevitability, it is the truth. And I also know I'm not actually going anywhere. And if we don't fulfill it completely, don't worry, you'll get another body. Come back again and finish it off. Yeah. Wonderful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening. And as I mentioned last night, I will be out for the next few weeks, but they will be each evening, for those of you who are here, showing a video of a past satsang with the kirtan and meditation, and the satsang, they'll show that on the screen here, so feel free to come in anyway if you're here. And otherwise they will, in place of where it's shown live every night, they'll restream a past satsang. And for those of you who will be here still in Rishikesh in a few weeks, it'll be great to see you. And if you're not still here, have beautiful, beautiful journeys and come back home very soon.